Jessie, welcome to the podcast. How are you? Where am I finding you today? Where are we finding you today?
Thanks for having me. I'm based in New York. Usually I would be in the office today, but I think, the rainy day has everyone on their rainy day blues. So usually I'm sitting in our Flatiron office where our U.S. headquarters sits.
Very nice. We're going to learn a lot more about ChannelEngine, but first we want to learn a little bit more about you. What's your background, and tell us a bit more about what you do for a living.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going on my 6th or 7th year of being in the SaaS world and e-commerce world. Previously, I used to work for a solution that provided B2B commerce for manufacturers and distributors. And then actually a connection that used to work there with me brought me over to ChannelEngine. So now I'm more on the faster paced D2C e-commerce side for marketplaces. So totally different world, but very similar challenges, I would say. But it's exciting to, see everything develop. Like things were totally different when I started.
Right. Now, when you were growing up, were you always interested in business or technology, or sometimes we fall into different roles? How did you find yourself into doing what you're doing? You like people? You're curious. How would you find your way into ChannelEngine and your career?
It's always a good story. Honestly, this was not even close to what I was originally planning to do. Prior to this, I had probably around 7 years of teaching in different fields. I was in special needs for some time. I was doing ESL, English as a Second Language. I was working some international humanitarian projects, building out educational programs in remote villages in China. So it was very different. I was traveling and on my feet. And my professors were doing the professor thing. They were like, go get your PhD and become one of us. That's what they always tell you to do in college. And for a while, I thought I would do that. For some reason in 2019, I was like, I got to get out of here. I didn't know why. There was some gut intuition. But yeah, I accelerated all my credits and I kind of just graduated early. And I was like, let me just put my applications everywhere. So that was when that first SaaS company that I worked for called me in the middle of a dance class. And they were like, you are so green. Like, your application has nothing we're looking for. I didn't even remember applying to them. And they were like, but you'd be good in sales. And I was like, okay. And years later, I loved it. I've always been a New Yorker. I've always been fast paced. And I guess I'm a natural salesperson.
Well, for what it's worth, I don't know about you, Jim. My professors never told me to go on and continue my education and get a PhD. They were like, "You just wrap up here, son, and you just get out of here.
Move on, move along, yeah.
Move on." All right, let's turn our minds to ChannelEngine. Scope, scale, your typical clients, your business model, and what makes you different in a competitive landscape.
Oh my gosh. Big question, Michael. It's like a sandwich of a question. We've been around since 2012, 2013. Originally a European company from the small town of Leiden, which is not too far from Amsterdam. But yeah, with any Dutch company, and the Dutch have so many of these great technologies coming out. We started off as a true third-party marketplace integrator because Europe just has way too many marketplaces. I mean, they have one for every country in every category, very different landscape than here in North America, where you kind of have like the top 20 players and everyone knows them. And now retailers are breaking into that space. But that's where we started off as a very startup. 5 years ago, we started the North America office here in New York, and it's been exploding ever since. Folks here were very much used to a similar way of working with, big names like Channel Advisor, now rebranded as Rhythm, thanks to their acquisition. They were used to that way of working with a huge managed services agency. But now the marketplace game has changed, and all of these smaller brands and mid-market brands are also breaking in, and they're looking for more nimble solutions. And for us, our solution is a lot younger. And so we were able to modernize and capitalize on that, self-service marketplace integration, an integrator that can work not just for North America and Europe, but for global marketplaces. And we've always specialized in that 3P, Amazon seller, Walmart marketplace kind of connection. So that's kind of where we grew from. Now we are working our way into more of like an enterprise ICP. I would say most of our clients today are brands or resellers that do well over 1 million across just their marketplaces, have a strong e-commerce presence, and are also looking to get their products onto, at least 5 or more channels globally. That's kind of where we stand out. I would say our support is top notch. We're only about 200 employees globally. So I always joke to our net new projects that you're always yelling at the same faces over and over again before go live. You get to know us really well, but I would say our support is state of the art.
Fantastic.
We couldn't agree with you more on the just the diversity of marketplaces, especially when you look over to the broader European region. It's something that we're always educating a lot of U.S. brands in terms of the choices that they have as they kind of move further into their European expansion. ChannelEngine just released a big marketplace seller trends report for this year. Is that right? I mean, love to hear a little bit more. What were some of the big ahas and findings from that, and tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. It was cool because we released 2 reports just this year. So I feel like we're kind of telling the ending to a story that we started telling beginning of 2025, which is when we released our consumer behaviors report. So in that report, we interviewed about 5,000 online shoppers who were like, hey, where are you starting your product discovery? What has changed in your online buying behavior? What's attractive to you? What's not attractive to you? And the key point that I got from that report was, the consumers are starting their product discovery on marketplaces as though they are a search engine. So folks are looking for birthday gifts or an outfit for New Year's dinner on Amazon directly. They're going on Macy's directly. It's not necessarily that old-fashioned, Google something and then go to the marketplace websites or retailer websites. So that was the key finding from that report. And then end of this year, we wrapped up our sellers report, which is what just released. It was about 500 sellers globally, and very similar questions. What's changed in your e-commerce strategy? What do you think is to come? What are you preparing for next year? And the findings were very they answered a lot of the open-ended questions that our consumer behavior report started off on. So some of the key findings there were, a lot of sellers feel compelled to segment out their product catalogs onto several marketplaces with that number as high as 6 to 10. And that is not a number that we used to see. I mean, I remember just a couple years back, everyone knew the big 3. Amazon, Walmart, eBay. And some folks didn't even realize that, Walmart had a marketplace at that time. Like it was a pure 1P, dropship vendor kind of relationship, like Amazon vendor. And, being on the big 3, that was a big deal. And then you would have like your e-commerce store, your Shopify, your BigCommerce, your Magento, whatever it was. But now it's almost the reverse, where I see folks that make the choice of, should I invest more in my standalone e-commerce store, or should I hire an external agency to get me on, all of these niche marketplaces? And I'm hearing more of the second. And you'll see more about this in the report as well. But, these sellers are forecasting that, in 2 to 3 years, like, the AI channel is going to be that new transactional e-commerce channel. Like that's going to replace a lot of these traditional, even marketplace touches. And that's coming out with our newest release with ChatGPT, where conversational AI is now an e-commerce channel. So there are a lot of changes. Sellers are anxious. But they're getting on top of it. They are also seeing that there's this push from retailers where they are starting their first ever marketplaces. For the longest time, Lowe's and Home Depot were very much like, we are okay with folks pulling into our parking lot and buying everything in store because that is how the home improvement and furniture space works. And now, Lowe's released their first ever third-party marketplace earlier this year. It's been explosive. It's like the hot new channel that all these brands want to get on. And Home Depot sees that, and they're also like, we want to get in on that game. And that's the same for many other, big box retailers.
Yeah, we were seeing a lot of that, especially in the European, markets where a lot of the big traditional store-based, retailers, were really investing quite heavily within their third-party marketplaces, which has been fantastic. What we've been really kind of observing and really monitoring, with a lot of these marketplaces, how does that kind of integrate with their core merchandising strategies? So kind of to your point of, where can a seller supplement, the choices that consumers have within, a given category? Any marketplaces that you guys have really been, watching closely as kind of a hot mover and shaker or anything like that?
Yeah, actually, most notably the social commerce channels. And, I always thought for the longest time, I'm like a millennial Facebook user, but I never imagined that TikTok on that forefront would blow past them and so quickly. TikTok Shop was one that we launched about 2 years ago, and it is still like one of those hot new channels that we get asked about all the time. And, you would figure that with all the things that are happening in our current administration with it, is it going to be banned? Is it not going to be banned? What is happening with it? We thought that would slow down momentum on that front. But no, I mean, people are still as active as ever on TikTok. They are nimble. They are pretty steadfast that it's not going anywhere anytime soon. And the behavior towards it has changed. I remember talking to some beauty and apparel brands last year, and they were like, yeah, but only like teenagers are buying from that channel, like there's no way. And then we dug deep with our reports and also our analytics, with our existing sellers on that platform, and we found out that actually a lot of 40-year-olds and up, they have the buying power on TikTok, and they're also the least averse to, I guess, like losing out on a product that isn't as, amazing as they thought it was online. Like they're less sensitive to the loss there. And so these more gimmicky products or these go viral products, actually, they are kind of the target audience in a lot of these new campaigns that are coming out, or these brands that are investing in that TikTok strategy. It's also the first time I've seen so many folks kind of focus less on their advertising, because for TikTok, that's purely just content and also how synonymous your product data is on that channel versus, are they seeing the same description on TikTok versus if you put that same product on a Nordstrom or a Macy's. So that's been interesting behavior to see. I think Target Plus has also been one that's been asked about a lot. They have been really working on curating their online selection. And it's been interesting. Every seller kind of asks me like, oh, we want to be on Target, but like, what exactly are they looking for? And that one's hard to put a finger on. There is a Target Plus feel, but it's one that it's so hard to describe. They have a certain type of brand that they're looking for, and nobody has really figured out what exactly that is yet.
Yeah, and Target's marketplace model being an invitation only to become a seller.
Very
So
exclusive.
yeah, you certainly have to kind of, meet those, thresholds. Fantastic, insights, there. And I would expect that these are some of the topics that we'll be talking about at our dinner, next week. We're very excited to be co-hosting a gathering of global e-commerce leaders forum, community members. A lot of senior executives from some nice, brands are going to be coming together next week in New York. We're excited that ChannelEngine is going to be one of our co-hosts for this event. Any other, topics that you think are going to be coming up as we're kind of looking ahead to next year's, agenda and programming, for GELF. And so certainly I've been asking a lot of people, what's happening? What's keeping you up at night? What are some of those, big challenges? From a ChannelEngine perspective, what are some of the topics that you're hoping to kind of, seed, at our dinner next week?
Yeah, especially with some bigger brands attending and more decision makers at the table. I kind of foresee that there will be a lot of conversations about, the 1P versus 3P.
Mm.
Why should we, fully invest in vendor or marketplace or do a hybrid of both? And I think more and more folks want to explore the hybrid. They just don't know exactly how that fits into their current business. And that's the question that we come, time and time again. I'm hearing this at conferences, like I go to all the big ones like the NRF and the shop talks. And folks are always like, yeah, we're figuring that out. Like internally, there's also a lot of conversation and oftentimes disagreements on what fits the vendor model versus the 3P model, and a lot of things go into that, right? Like fulfillment methods, shipping speeds, sensitivity of that product. Do you trust it to be handled by the retailer, and also how does that affect your brand presence and messaging? Because on the vendor side, it's great because you do a lot less work, but you also don't control the pricing, the promotion, or the messaging of it. They could be discounting your product 30%, and that could be jarring to see against whatever you're listing on your own e-commerce website. But I'm hearing that more and more, and I'm also seeing this on the retailer side. And maybe this is a bit of a call out to them, but I see a lot of the retailer teams and their 1P team and their third-party marketplace team totally separate islands.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
interesting.
oftentimes have no idea that they're even working with this kind of brand on the other side. And it causes some interesting conversations once we approach them with the marketplace syndication topic. Because sometimes we'll be like, yeah, we want to integrate, but by the way, you also have this 1P relationship. How do you want to strategize there? So I definitely want to hear more about that. I think another hot topic is going to be, the topic of is custom building even worth it anymore? I work with so many of these net new projects, and they've got all these custom developed integrations that years ago it made perfect sense. And I came from the B2B world, and ERPs especially are highly complex beasts of solutions. And if you've ever been in, like an SAP or Microsoft Dynamics or an Oracle NetSuite, you know that back then it was just easier to, find folks with expertise and build out that integration to whatever channel it was that you were trying to integrate into, whether it was your e-commerce store or your marketplaces. But now, and I hear this, and it's more and more coming from the PIM side now too, it's becoming too complex, and folks are like, I wish we just invested in a solution like a ChannelEngine or like a PIM or something that already works well with our ERP, because the larger this footprint grows, like the more we're ripping things out and rebuilding them, or kind of just barely duct taping them and making sure that it works for the time being, but we kind of know it's going to be a behemoth for, whatever new IT guy that we hire on this team later on. So I think the topic of, integration and is custom building even worth it, or, should we go third party? I think that's also going to be a recurring topic.
Yeah, certainly we see that, increasing complexity of go-to-market strategies, amongst a lot of the sellers, just creating, that kind of challenge. So again, simplifying or finding, the right solutions, certainly is something that, we're hearing a lot, from a lot of these same sellers.
Jesse, this conversation is fantastic. It's like a bit of a masterclass already, but I wanted to hone this down into advice for the retailers and brands listening to the podcast or watching us on YouTube. And I'm going to frame it for you, advice, 2 starts and 1 stop when it comes to mastering international marketplaces and growing their business. So 2 things they should start doing, maybe they're not, and 1 thing that in your experience, people do, but it's just not working anymore or never worked. What's your advice?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I'll kind of I'll kind of like make them all tie together because I really
Sure.
do see this as like a comprehensive story.
Mm.
I would say with the stop, I think custom building is out of fashion. I've seen all sorts of custom integrations. They just never seem to be the long-term solution, and the internal happiness is also not at an all-time high with those kinds of solutions. I've noticed, and it's weird because I would think that, oh, it's usually the IT folks that come to us with those challenges, but no, it's everybody feeling the weight of that, like feeling like, why didn't we just go with these guys? Because it is a lot easier to just call up a reliable technology partner and say, hey, you guys have the expertise in this, help us fix this, or help us tell us what to do next. It's nice to outsource that because, genuinely speaking, as a brand, you're focusing on what works for your brand, but you don't necessarily, have the knowledge on, what integrations are going to be relevant for what later on. So I would
Yeah.
say, custom building, let's stop doing that. As for the two starts, I would say, start asking any technology provider that you enlist these days, especially for your e-commerce and marketplace strategy, what incentivizes them as a partner to continue
Mm.
growing you. And I think this is a question that, I mean, I wish I got it more during my discovery processes. I work all the net new projects, and it's great because it's so early stage, and a lot of folks are like, I don't even know where to begin. Tell me where to begin. And then they ask me about pricing or the onboarding timeline, all the traditional decision making questions. But then it never comes up, the concern that, hey, I could be one of those integrators. And believe me, there are thousands of them out there, those integrator partners that, kind of hook you up, and then they just kind of throw the project over the fence, and you're on your own. You're on your own island.
Yeah.
You got to plant your own food. And I kind of wonder, why aren't you guys asking me, what incentivizes us to grow you? Because I could tell you so many different things and it would give you
Mm.
peace of mind. But I always wonder, is it because they're not worrying about this yet because it's not, face to face with them just yet?
Interesting.
But things about, ask how the provider is incentivized to grow you. Are they going to be that liaison to the new channels? When Ulta Beauty, which they just released a new marketplace channel, when Best Buy US, they also just released a new channel. Are they going to be that partner that gets you guys in front of them? Do they have that kind of clout with their category team?
Mm.
Can they facilitate that warm introduction? And secondly, if you see a drop in GMV or if your products aren't doing as well as you expected, despite a sometimes very extensive onboarding process, some of these catalogs are really large, so it can be a very painful process. But if you're not seeing successful GMV, how is your partner reacting to that? Like, do they care? Did they bring it to your attention? Are they proactive? So that's something I would definitely start doing. The other thing is to start looking at providers and partners that leverage AI properly.
Mm.
I would say the right way to use AI today, and it's such a buzzword, and it's actually a huge part of my role. So I work with a lot of the AI tooling that we use in house. And the joke is that I create a lot of AI agents to mimic my fellow colleagues and employees here at ChannelEngine. Mimic the work that they're doing. So I'm
Yeah.
like leading my own AI army. But I'm the first one to say, there's a right way to use AI and there's a wrong way to use AI. And definitely the wrong way is to enlist some random AI tool and kind of just like let it run on its own. Um, Always partner with an AI partner that you can learn from and implement in those more manual processes that require a human touch, because that AI firm is going to be developing faster than somebody on your
Mm.
team can, learn it.
Absorb. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
right, you gotta just imitate it and learn from there in some cases. And then the other thing is, does the AI even make sense for the stage of business? Is your
Mm.
data already very discombobulated, and is the AI just going to replicate and also create more I call it like brain rot on top of
Yeah.
that existing data.
Gets you.
Yeah, I would
Sometimes
say
it can
those
get
are
you to
the
the
two
wrong place
starts.
just faster, right? I mean, if you're not careful,
Yes,
right?
very much so.
Right. It's this has just been fantastic. Now there's a bunch of folks who will be joining us in on Wednesday, October 22nd in New York City, but lots of folks who perhaps are unable to make the trip. How do people get in touch with you to learn more and delve into this considerable amount of expertise? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You can always find us, of course, on our website, channelengine.com. There's like 50 different ways to request a call, and they all lead to me somehow. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always down to, do a little virtual chat. But also, and kind of unconventional, but search for us through the LLMs that are out there. I know a lot of folks are
Nice.
in the SaaS world and business development world, and I follow a lot of these gurus. They're like hating on the lack of inbounds, and site traffic is down everywhere because everyone's just like asking ChatGPT and Gemini to do the discovery and qualification for them. It's honestly genius, and I know that it's us, Gen Zers and Gen Alphas leading the charge on that.
Yeah.
But do that. I love it when folks come onto a discovery call with me and they're like, ChatGPT said this about you guys. Can you validate that? And I'm like, yes, let me validate what this LLM has somehow learned from us from who knows where. No one has figured out the algorithm yet, but keep
Reddit,
asking
or
them
maybe some Reddit
because,
post, maybe, or some crazy
right,
thing,
Yeah,
right?
right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Who knows? But ask Gemini. That's totally fine with me.
Well, all that's, fantastic. Jessie, thank you so much, for joining us today, sharing some of your insights. I really look forward to kind of continuing this, conversation next
Yeah.
week, October 22nd, for the GELF ReBoot Dinner. So thank you again, for joining us today, and, looking forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah. Thank you both. This was an amazing opportunity. Can't wait for dinner next week.